Hello everyone, Charles Watts here. Welcome back to Inside Arsenal. It is Monday morning. I hope you're having a good start to the week, wherever you're watching or listening to this around the world. As always, thank you very much for joining me. I really do appreciate it. I say I hope you're having a really good start to the week. You should be. If you're not, why not? Arsenal are top of the table. They've got a 4-point gap at the top of the table. They're 6 points ahead of Manchester City. They're 7 points ahead of Liverpool. There is a long way to go, of course, but it's a nice position to be in. When you're waking up on a Monday morning and you're just thinking to yourself, that first thought that enters your mind when you wake up, it's like, how are Arsenal doing in the Premier League? Oh, yeah, they're sitting very nicely at the top. It's been a good month. October has been kind to Arsenal. And it all sort of culminated, obviously, yesterday in the 1-0 win against I was going to say PSG. I don't know why. Crystal Palace, of course, in the Premier League yesterday. Brilliance scoring against his former club to give Arsenal 3 more valuable points. It's another clean sheet for Mikel Arteta's side. We're going to round up yesterday's game in today's show. Obviously, I did my sort of immediate post-match reaction yesterday with my player ratings. We'll go over those again, talk about the game more in depth. We'll look at what Mikel's had to say. We'll look about the injuries, which is, of course, the one downside from yesterday's game. A few injury concerns coming out of that game. So we'll give our thoughts on that, share lots of comments from you guys on various things as well. So plenty for us to get stuck into after what was a really hard-fought, difficult win for Arsenal against a very good Crystal Palace side. They impressed me a lot. I mean, I've seen plenty of Crystal Palace this season. I knew what yesterday was going to be like. I knew it was going to be an incredibly difficult game for Arsenal against a team who are superbly well drilled, dangerous going forward, can sit in, defend, got really good discipline about them, and Arsenal had to stay patient. It was a moment of brilliance that won them the game from Eza. Wasn't his best performance, I didn't think, certainly up to the point he scored his goal, but this is why Arsenal signed him, to produce moments like that can break open games that are kind of drifting a little bit, where Arsenal are struggling to break a team down. Haven't really had too many of those sort of maverick players in the last few years who could just provide that moment of brilliance to do it. That's why they signed Eza, and he did it yesterday. It was a fabulous goal that too many people, I think, have played down because it kind of came from a set piece. So it just added to all the set piece narrative that we have to listen to and endure after every single game. Yes, this was a free kick into the box. And I've got a question about this in a minute, actually, they'll bring up about, when does a set piece stop being a set piece? I don't think this would sort of get to that point because it was just sort of one knockdown when it fell to Eza. But, it wasn't like a set piece swung in and someone comes flying. Gabriel coming in at back post, bang, header, 1-0, your classic set piece. This was all about individual open play brilliance. This was from Eza. It was nothing to do with the set piece. It was such a difficult shot. I mean, the picture you're watching on the screen there doesn't really do it justice. To keep the shot down, to hit it the way he did through a crowd of players, to find the corner, it was just quality. It was such a good goal. And it came at a perfect time for Arsenal because it had been a difficult first half. I thought Crystal Palace was a better team in the first half. I thought they carried more of a threat than Arsenal did. It was that classic low block that Arsenal were struggling to deal with. And you sometimes, you either need a set piece or you need a moment of brilliance to do that. And Arsenal kind of got both because it did stem from the free kick, but it was a moment of brilliance from Eza, and that put Arsenal 1-0 in front. I thought they were much better in the second half. There was obviously that sort of 25-minute period at the start of the second half where they really went for the second goal and they didn't find it, and then that endured it, and because of that, they had to endure a sort of nervy ending. Although Crystal Palace, to be fair, never looked like scoring. Arsenal defended very, very well, but there was that period at the start of the second half when they went for it. They created chances, they just couldn't find a way through. So a second goal would have been really, really nice. It was a brilliant shot from Saka that went wide. There was the Gabriel header that hit the bar. Then Declan Rice's follow up was really well saved by Dean Henderson. There was the moment when Trossard got in down the left, brought the ball down, tried to flick it over to Saka at the back post for a tap in, but I think it was Mark Gay. He got there and turned it away. So that was a period when you were just watching it. Come on, get that second goal. It didn't arrive. And then you had to endure that sort of last 15 minutes. There was times when Crystal Palace were pumping the ball into the penalty area. I thought Arsenal dealt with that pretty well. I mean, what you have to consider as well, Arsenal ended this game. When you think of the players Arsenal ended the game without yesterday, so you got the long-term absentees. So there's obviously no Odegaard, no Havertz, no Jesus, no Madueke. But then they also lost Saliba at half-time. Declan Rice went off. Bukayo Saka went off. 7 players I've just listed there. So Arsenal ended the game without those players. And they still relatively comfortably saw the game out against an incredibly good Crystal Palace side. You imagine, I don't know, a year ago, last season, if you're watching that game, you're already missing a load of players for injury, and then you watch Saka go off early. You see Declan Rice limp off. You see William Saliba go off at half-time. You'd be sitting there thinking, oh my God, they're going to equalise here. We're going to really, really struggle. But, Arsenal just got that strength in depth to be able to carry it on and see it out. And they saw it out pretty comfortably yesterday and claimed a massively important win. A massively important win. You look at that. I mean, I can't believe, by the way, I was doing the live stream yesterday and I didn't think they'd had a shot on target. I couldn't think of it. Opera have given them a shot on target, Crystal Palace. And it apparently was when apparently it was when Eddie Nketiah, the cross came in and Eddie went up, sort of challenged David Raya for the ball. I didn't even think Eddie touched it, and Raya sort of punched it away. And that's gone down as a shot on target, apparently, for Crystal Palace. It's like they're sort of giving teams sympathy shots on target against Arsenal at the moment. But apparently it has gone down as a shot on target. So that ends Arsenal's run of a couple of games without conceding one. But it was a tight game. The stats show that. There wasn't much in it. It was one of those games when you looked at it and just thought maybe a moment of individual brilliance will have to decide it. And that is exactly what happened with Eza. And Mikel was delighted afterwards. I really agree with what he had to say here. He said, I just told the boys that I probably value this victory more than any other victory this season because we knew the difficulty of it after playing every 3 days. We had a big opportunity as well with the things that happened during the weekend. And I knew we played against a team that, in my opinion, has been one of the best recently in terms of organisation, how difficult they make it, how frustrated they can make you. The moment you lose concentration, they will punish you. We've managed to be very stable, playing the game we have to play. First half, we were a bit stuck, but we found a way to score. And in the second half, we attacked better, we're more fluent. But with it 1-0, we knew we had to suffer because the team has to score goals to beat any opponent in this season. So to keep that clean sheet is very, very important. So the biggest win of the season, according to Mikel Arteta. And I honestly think he's right. Especially after what happened earlier on in the weekend, the fact that we knew that Liverpool had lost, Chelsea had lost, we knew City at the same time of playing Arsenal were having a really difficult game against Aston Villa at Villa Park. Arsenal went into it. They knew there was a real big opportunity there. Mikel did say that the players weren't allowed phones in the change room, so they didn't know what was going on in terms of the Man City game at Villa Park as Arsenal would play them. But even having said that, just the fact, the knowledge that Liverpool had lost the weekend before and they had an opportunity to make it 7 points, the gap, and against a team who are incredibly difficult to play against. This is now 12 points from 12 from Arsenal, from Newcastle away, West Ham home, Fulham away, Palace at home. Last season, they got 2 points from 12 in those games, and they got maximum 12 out of 12 this season without conceding a goal. It's been a fabulous run in October. Could it be better? Could we do more from open play? Yes, absolutely. But I also think the open play stuff, while there is something to it, because you do want to be able to finish these games off, you don't want it to stay at 1-0, like Mikel said. You always have to suffer if it stays at 1-0. And I get that. But I do think when everyone looks at the open play and all that sort of stuff, no one has to deal with what Arsenal are dealing with in terms of how they're playing against these teams. No one. You look at Crystal Palace, conceded 3 goals. Everyone's saying, the Bournemouth scored 3 against them last week. And they did, but they played completely different way. Look at how open Palace were in that game. Just don't do it against Arsenal. Arsenal have to come up against these low blocks every single week. Even Manchester City, for God's sake, played 10 men behind the ball and camped themselves on the edge of their own penalty area against Arsenal at the Etihad. Manchester City did that. That's what Arsenal have to deal with every single week. So as easy as it is to throw out the open play, XG, open play goals, all that sort of stuff, it does need to be put into context a little bit in terms of exactly what Arsenal are coming up against every single week. And they're still finding ways to win. Last season, they didn't find ways to win. They couldn't. They dropped points after point after point coming up against these teams playing this way. But this season, so far, it must be said, because there's a long way to go, but so far they are finding ways to win these games. And that is because of set pieces. It is because of moments of brilliance like we saw with Eza yesterday. And I think they deserve a lot more credit than they are getting. So just talking about Eza, and it was a big moment for him. Obviously, it was a difficult moment. It was an emotional game for him against a team that he loves. His mates he's playing against, the fans over there who obviously love him, and he doesn't want to celebrate in front of them, which is absolutely I sometimes I always think it's like, do you have to not celebrate? In Ez's case yesterday, with it so soon after the move, and because of the emotional tie that he does have with that club, I could absolutely understand him being sort of very stony faced after the goal and not want to rub it in. And the Palace fans respected that. You saw they applauded him off the pitch in the second half when he went off. But it was a brilliant moment for him and a crucial moment as well. As I said, this is why Arsenal signed him, for moments like this when you need someone to just pull a rabbit out of the hat. And he did it. And he did it yesterday. Mikel was afterwards, is that the kind of moment you signed him for? He said, yes, 100%, to strike the ball in the manner that he did. Very similar to where he did it last year against us, but he scored when he scored from the corner. So he's got the ability to do that against a team that defends with that many bodies, so physical, don't allow space. With 9 defending your best player, you have to generate chaos or open space to generate big chances. And he took the goal really, really well. And he did. He did. It was an excellent goal. And hopefully that's because I didn't think he played that well before it. So I'm not going to sort of sugarcoat it and say, it was a brilliant performance from us. I didn't think it was. But it doesn't really matter if you score a winning goal like that and you win your team, your 3 points. But hopefully it does sort of just boost his confidence a little bit more. It's another big contribution for him now. He's not set the world alight yet at Arsenal, but he's made big contributions already this season. That's 3 points he's won for the team yesterday. His brilliant pass to Martinelli won Arsenal a really good point in the end against Manchester City as well. So he is contributing, even though he's probably not found his hit top stride at Arsenal yet. But it was a really big moment for him. Right, these are my player ratings from yesterday's game. Obviously, I went through them yesterday. I don't think I've actually changed any. Normally, the next day, when I think about it a bit more, I sort of tweak them. I stuck with Raya at 6, and we'll get to that in a minute because a lot of you have got, some of you have made comments about that. But I stuck with Raya as a 6, which is a good rating. It means you've played well, in my view. 6 is a good. You've done well on a 6. You haven't, but nothing spectacular, nothing brilliant, but no mistakes. So it's just a good, solid rating for me. Is a 6. That's where I start my ratings off. 5 is where you start getting down, like maybe you've done something wrong. But 6 is just a good, strong, sort of, or a good average performance. And I know he did everything he needed to do well yesterday. But that's what I kind of expect him to do because he's that good. And that's what that's what he's in the team to do. So he did his job well without doing anything massively spectacular, without making any mistakes, which is why I've just given him a 6. Timber, I thought, was excellent. He was my man of the match, Timber. I just thought he was brilliant on that right-hand side. He's just been brilliant all season. I gave him an 8. Saliba gave a 6. I thought he struggled at times against Mateta. Maybe he was carrying this injury that Mikel was talking about that forced him off at half-time, and that was affecting him a little bit, and that's why he went off. But I gave him a 6. Gabriel, I gave a 7. Calafiori, I gave a 7. Gabriel could have potentially got an 8, to be fair. I think if I gave out 0.5s, he would definitely be 7.5. Because obviously he's played a part in the goal, sort of causing some chaos at the back post. That eventually sort of saw the ball knocked down into Wesley's path. He had the header against the bar in the second half as well, so it's still causing trouble from those set pieces. Made a couple of good blocks as well. So I gave him a 7. Calafiori a 7. Zubimendi, I didn't think was his best game at all. Zubimendi, didn't think he was terrible, and I thought it was much, much better in the second half. Made some really key contributions, especially in the air. But I gave him a 6. Rice gave a 7. Eza gave a 7. Said it wasn't his best performance. Had he not scored that goal, probably would have given him a 6. But you score a goal like that wins the game, I think you definitely get an extra point on that. So I gave him a 7. Saka never really got into the game. He had so many Crystal Palace players on him. So many. It was ridiculous. It was like being triple marked by everyone. Trossard, I thought, played well. I thought he was Arsenal's best attacker yesterday. Trossard, good, solid performance from him. Gave him a 7. Gyökeres, I gave a 6. Nothing spectacular from Gyökeres. Didn't really get a sniff in front of goal at all. Worked the channels, did what you want him to do, sort of working hard, running the channels. He did. I did nearly throw something at the TV when he didn't run to the corner flag in the last minute, in like the 93rd minute, when he went down the left-hand side and he decided to come inside and sort of gave the ball away. He realised that he didn't have any teammates supporting him, but everyone was sort of back at that point. It's like a bit of game management there, Victor. Please get to the corner flag. Aside from that moment, I thought he had he did what he needed to do, feeding off scraps. So I gave him a 6 as well. Subs who came on, I thought Mosquera played very, very well in that second half, just slotted in perfectly. So I gave him a 7. Good to see Hincapié get some Premier League minutes as well. Looked pretty lively in a very, very short cameo. Martinelli couldn't really get into the game at all, and obviously Mourinho's and Lewis Skelly came on pretty late. So Mosquera is the only one I really give a rating to there. I gave him a 7. So Timber, my man of the match. Right, let's go through what some of you guys have been saying then. This is one from Stevo. Stevo says, when does a set piece stop being a set piece? How many touches a ball? I don't really think Ez's goal was from a set piece, as the ball touched a couple of times before it reached him. See, I think this one probably does go because it was kind of it was like getting the second ball, wasn't it? It was the header at the back post fell to him. So I can understand why it does go down as a set piece goal, but it's not your classic set piece goal. When you score like that, that's all down to Eza. That's not really down to the set piece. But it's a good point. And when does a set piece stop being a set piece? I don't think we got to that point yesterday with Eza's goal. But a couple more, if they cleared it out of the penalty area and then it gets recycled back, then I don't think you can call that a set piece. Harry says, "Hi, Charles. Love the show. Thank you very much. One thing that nobody seems to mention is the fact that Arsenal get so many opportunities from set pieces because they win so many. And the reason is they pressurise and frustrate opponents so much. They earn their set pieces. They're not just given to them." You're right. Absolutely. And I do think opponents should be looking at this a little bit. As I said, Arsenal have to play against the low block so much. And because teams are so deep with so many players in and around their penalty area, of course they're going to give away corners because they've got so many players around that sort of 18-yard area. So you're going to get deflections, you're going to get ball bouncing off or clearances or headers and that stuff going behind. So I think teams, while they're all moaning and rival fans are moaning about Arsenal set pieces, maybe if teams played against Arsenal a little bit differently, Arsenal wouldn't get so many set pieces. If they came out a little bit and they weren't all so close to their own goal, then you wouldn't have that threat of giving away corner after corner after corner at times. So yeah, open up against Arsenal. Stop moaning, open up against Arsenal. Then let's see what happens. Green Shoots says, Gabriel was man of the match. Multiple important blocks and positioning. As Gresham probably won the match, really. Timber was excellent, though. Eze was poor before the goal, kept giving away, but brilliant finish. Raya was great. Sweeping up, took the pressure off. Timing and distribution, excellent. Should be a 7, really. Gabriel's challenge made the chance for Eze. Also, Zar says, Palace were well drilled. You could see how they beat Liverpool. Arsenal weren't at their best. Zubi was way off today. Timber and Victor were immense, along with Gabby putting his body on the line. Well, one part of his body on the line of the goalpost. Yeah, absolutely. Class A mindset. It says Eze seems to be playing within himself a little unsure to dictate tempo or drive forward. Ends up floating around so much. The indecision also shows in his passing, never assured. I'm glad he scored. Should give him a boost. Not easy going from being the king to being one of many princes. That's a really good way of putting it at the end there. He certainly has gone from being the king of Selhurst Park to being in amongst the machine at Arsenal. They are. But yeah, hopefully that goal does sort of kick him on a little bit and we see more of the thing. I think with Eze, it's so hard to replicate what Martin Odegaard does. It's only when Odegaard's not playing that you realise just how much he does and how he's always on the ball when he's dictating play, he's dropping deep. There's a lot of things that people complain about in terms of Martin Odegaard. But when he's not there, you just realise he's just, even when he doesn't play well, he's always zipping around, getting the ball, trying to move it and keeping, recycling possession, all that sort of stuff. And you don't really see that when he's not in the team. And Eze is very, very different to Martin Odegaard. He is. All right, a few more now from one from Sayat. Says, hi, Charles. Love your show. Keep it up. Just wanted to give a little bit more love to Raya. It's true that in terms of saves, he didn't have much to do, but I think we underestimate all the other things he does. Claiming crosses, being so proactive in clearing the ball when needed to, getting his starting position spot on almost every time. So when they're playing long balls from Palace and knowing when to come and clear it out. Raz Basari, says Raya is part of the defensive back line. So when you are giving defenders 7 and 8s, Raya should be scored accordingly. They all kept a clean sheet. You're right. And I am not underappreciating Raya at all. I think he's brilliant. One of the best goalkeepers in the world. And I think he's perfect for Arsenal. I wouldn't swap him for anyone. So yeah, I'm glad you're giving him some love there. What's that? Femic, is it? Femic, I think, says, love everything you do, Charles, but I think you're underrating Raya. I'm not. Trust me, I'm not underrating Raya. His decision-making, clearances, distribution, all excellent. I fear you're only judging his shot stopping. That's far more to his game. Also, I think his shot stopping ability that is heavily influenced in the lack of shots against us. A game where he has very little to do, but gets a clean sheet, I feel should be a baseline of 7 out of 10. I don't know. Because he's doing everything I expect him to do, and he's doing it really well. But I'm not sure there's anything there that sort of pushed him above a 6. I don't know. Maybe I'm being harsh, but a 6 is a good score. It means that he's done exactly what I expected him to do in a game. So that's why I gave him a 6. But trust me, I don't underrate Raya. I don't undervalue Raya. I know how important he is. I wouldn't want any other goalkeeper in this world other than David Raya. He's perfect for this team. Spinksinator says, Trossard, man of the match for me. Possibly the most complete performance across 90 minutes he's had at Arsenal. So some love for Leandro Trossard there. Right. So yeah, there was a downside to yesterday's result. Obviously, we lost Saliba at half time to injury. Rice went off in the second half. Calafiori as well went off. Um, so that is not ideal on the back of all the other injuries that Arsenal have at the moment. Mikel couldn't really say anything sort of straight after the game. I think that will become clearer today, tomorrow, if players have to have scans or anything like that. Mikel's press conference is at 3 p.m. tomorrow ahead of the game against Brighton on Wednesday night. I would suggest that none of these players, even if they were fine and recovered, would be playing in that Brighton game. Anyway, he just said that the first one was Willie and he had to be taken out in the first half. Declan was struggling from the first half of a knock, and we took Ricky off as well. Let's see how it goes. When he was asked if he could provide any more information, he said, no, I just don't know. It's not because I don't want to tell you, but because I don't know. On Willie, there are two things related to his sub. And with Declan, I just don't really know because it was a knock. And I don't know if it was his calf or it was his Achilles or exactly what it was. The thing with Declan Rice that makes me feel quite optimistic is that he didn't go straight down the tunnel. He sat and watched the second half on the subs bench. When he went down the tunnel after the Arsenal did the sort of social video of Frimmy sort of high-fiving all the players in the tunnel before they walked into the change room at the end, and Declan Rice came bouncing down the tunnel and sort of high-fived him. He didn't look like an injured player. So I'm feeling fairly optimistic about that one. He wouldn't be playing this weekend. Oh, sorry, on Wednesday anyway. So he's going to get the week off now. Obviously, we'll wait and see what's going on with Saliba. Bukayo Saka was ill, apparently, and that's why he'd been ill all week. That's why he wasn't in the training pictures. And Arsenal took him off in the second half to make sure that he didn't get, fatigue didn't become a factor and he didn't do any further damage to himself. So we'll have to wait and see. Fingers crossed, nothing's too bad. The one was on Martinelli, who isn't listed there. That's the one I'm more worried about because that seems like by what Mikel said afterwards, when he said, he felt something, that sounds a bit more like a muscular issue, which is obviously a concern. We don't want to be seeing that happening. Again, it's not like he's been overplayed. He was rested in he got the Champions League started in midweek, but then he was on the bench. Yesterday, he was on the bench against Fulham. He only came on for 20 or so minutes, and it would be a real shame if he's done some sort of muscular damage and misses any game time because he's been so influential so far this season. So fingers crossed on the injuries. It is a concern, no doubt about it. It's the one sort of downside on the back of yesterday's result. Just a couple more sort of comments and questions here before we wrap this one up. Jason has got in touch. Says, long time listener, thought your book was excellent. Got a copy for my brother as well, and he agrees. Thank you very much to the pair of you. Glad you enjoyed it. Here are my thoughts on the bigger picture of the season so far. We came into the weekend 3 ahead of City, 4 ahead of Liverpool. Now we're 6 and 7 points clear respectively. However, the only talk I hear about Bournemouth only being 4 points behind and Sunderland only being 5 behind. So this is a typical, you little teams are doing so great early on. Here's a pat on the head. My tiny concern is that we might be writing them off and finding ourselves saying, whoa, I thought the Leicester type thing was only supposed to happen once. Any thoughts on this? I will certainly be keeping an eye on Bournemouth because I think they're a fabulous team and have been for a while. And I think they've got an unbelievable manager. I don't really look at either of those teams and think, we could have another Leicester on the hands. And that's not underestimating them at all. Sunderland done a brilliant job, and it's going to be an incredibly difficult game when Arsenal go up there in a couple of weeks to the stadium. And no doubt about it, I think Granit Xhaka is arguably up there with the best signings of the summer for any team in the Premier League. Just a brilliant, smart piece of business. And I think it's great to see them doing so well. And it's not just that they're doing it at home at Sun. They went away to Stamford Bridge and won, and deservedly so, at the weekend. So I don't think anyone's underestimating them, but I don't see those two. I don't see another team outside of Arsenal, Liverpool, or Man City. Maybe that's me being overconfident. I know. I don't see another team outside of those three winning the title this season. But fingers crossed I'm right as well. Imagine that Arsenal finally finish above both Liverpool, Man City, and lose out to Bournemouth or Sunderland for a league title. Jelly Belly says, hi, Charles. A point on the Brighton Carabao Cup game and injuries. Arsenal have to roll out the under-21s for Brighton. It's as simple as that. Go out. We don't need the extra games and we cannot risk more injuries that could easily derail our title push. Havertz, Madueke, Odegaard all out already. Big Gabby played the whole 90 while being a doubt. Saka is ill. Rice looked like a hamstring. Martinelli limped down the tunnel. Calafiori off. Saliba off. If we want a Premier League or the Champions League, we simply have to prioritise. The Carabao means absolutely nothing. See, I disagree here, JDB. I do disagree. Is it at the bottom of Arsenal's priority list? Yes. Does it mean absolutely nothing? No. Do I want to win the Carabao Cup? Absolutely. What it would give to this team if in February you got a trophy tucked away already. You've had that celebration. You've had that feeling of winning a trophy, knowing you can do it. What that could do for Arsenal in the final 3 months of the season as the the title race really heats up and the Champions League goes into the really sort of deep phase of the competition, I think it would be massive for Arsenal. They will make a load of changes, but I don't think they roll out the under-21s for Brighton. I don't think when you've got a squad like Arsenal, you need to do that. It's still going to be a strong team. You don't take any risks on anyone, absolutely, but it's still going to be a strong team. And I don't agree that it means nothing. I would love to win the Carabao Cup this season. Absolutely love it. But yeah, I agree. You don't want to take any risks on any players, but I don't think you need to take any risks. The squad's strong enough now that you don't have to take any risk on any players, in my view. And that is it. Sorry, I've gone on a little bit longer than normal today, but there was plenty to talk about. So yeah, hope you had a good day. Hope you have a good Monday. Hope you have a good start to the week. Press conference tomorrow. Another game on Wednesday. It all keeps coming. The action keeps unfolding. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. I'll be back tomorrow to do it all over again. Bye-bye.